Hello again. I've had a few emails and messages from people asking for a bit of information about the sort of gear that I'm using, in terms of guitars, effects and amps and so on. Always happy to oblige, so in this video I thought I'd talk you through one of the pedals which I'm using at the minute, which is this one. It's the BBE Sonic Stomp. This is the Sonic Stomp. It's a pedal based version of an effect from BBE called the Sonic Maximizer, which you might have heard of. It's a really difficult unit to describe. The Sonic Maximizer basically is like a rack mounted effects unit, and what BBE have done with the Sonic Stomp is build it into a pedal sized stomp box unit. Nice all metal construction, really solid, very positive latch switch there, and two knobs, one called low contour and one called process. Don't really give you that much of a clue about what it actually does, and it is actually quite a hard effect to describe. It's not a filter so much, it's not an EQ. The best way to describe it is it makes your guitar sound better. Well, say your guitar, it can be used with any instrument. Obviously I'm a guitarist, I use it with a guitar. Descriptions I've heard of it, it's like the difference between lo-fi and high def, or it's like taking a big heavy blanket away from your speakers. It just makes you sound more full, more alive. The pedal itself, fair old size, probably about 3 inches by 4 inches maybe. All metal construction, as I say, good non-slip rubber base. It'll take a battery or 9-volt power supply, as you might expect, and it's also true bypass. There's a lot of talk about what's better. Is it better to have true bypass or buffered switch or whatever? Basically what it's all about is with a true bypass pedal, when you click the switch to turn the effect off, the signal goes in and straight through and out again. It doesn't go through any of the circuitry on the board itself, so you have no signal loss and it doesn't colour the sound in any way. This is true bypass and it works for me. The real test is, you use your ears. If you have the pedal plugged in, switched off, listen to your sound, then take the pedal out of the chain completely. There should be no difference in sound. That's a sign that the bypass is working and the unused pedal isn't colouring your effect, you're colouring your sound any. So back to this box, what does it actually do? It's kind of hard to describe. Like I say, it just makes your guitar sound better. It's not going to magically make a super budget guitar with a really cheap amp sound brilliant, but what it can do is really enhance the sound that you've already got from your gear. Best way to show you is just plug it in and let you hear some sounds. Okay, for these samples, what I'm going to be doing is using my Thompson signature guitar into a Blackstar HT5R amplifier, using the emulated out into the mixer and then into the computer for recording. No other effects in the mix. I'll be playing with a bit of overdrive. I was just using the dirty channel on the amp, and any reverb is just the built-in amp reverb, so there's no other stomp boxes or effects in the chain. What I'll be doing is playing some sounds just without the effect, then kicking in the Sonic Stomp so you can hear how that sounds and how it changes the sound of the guitar. Let's have a listen. So let's just start off the first example with the controls set halfway. Now, as I said, this isn't an EQ, but the low contour control, that one works with the lower frequencies, and the process acts, you can hear the effect more on the higher frequencies in the tone. So this is a starting point. This is the clean sound without any effect. And this is with the Sonic Stomp. So onto the dirty channel now. This is the dry signal, so without the Sonic Stomp. And then with the Sonic Stomp.
Okay, probably ought to point out, if you hear any little clicks or pops as we're going along, I've got an ambient mic picking up some sound from the room. So if you hear a click, it's probably just my foot on either the foot switch for the amp or the foot switch on the Sonic Stomp. It's not like electrical noise going down the cable, it's just, if you like, mechanical noise that you can hear in the room. So it's not a fault of the unit itself. What I'm going to do now is turn the low contour up a little bit. You hear the difference that makes to the tone. Here we've got the clean sound without the effect. Then with the effect added in. And now let's try the same settings on the dirty channel. So here's the dirty sound without the Sonic Stomp. Now kick the Sonic Stomp in. Sounds like this. Okay, we'll take the low contour back to the halfway point and turn that process knob up a bit further so you can hear with a more trebly sound, hear how that sounds. So again, here's the clean signal without the effect. And we'll kick the effect in. Onto the dirty channel now. Here's the sound without the Sonic Stomp for comparison. Now with the Sonic Stomp. So you can probably tell from those samples there, the effect is quite subtle a lot of the time. If you look on the internet at some of the discussion forums where people are talking about this box, sometimes it doesn't get such favourable reviews, and I think a lot of that reading between the lines is because it's not a particularly noticeable effect. It is quite subtle, and I think when people are spending money on an effects unit, they wanted to really change the sound of the guitar, like the difference between going from a clean to putting an overdrive pedal into the chain, or going from a dry signal to having a phaser effect. You know, it's a very noticeable thing. This is a bit more subtle, and I think because of that some people are a little bit down on it. Personally, I think it's really good. Probably better more for like home recording, studio type of use perhaps rather than live, but I see no reason why you couldn't use it in your live rig as well. Would I recommend it? Well, best I can say is I've listened to it, I like it, I use it, it suits my playing, my style, the other equipment that I've got down here. Whether or not it's right for you, you know, it's always really subjective. I remember when I first started getting into guitars and effects and so on, you know, I was looking at what effects my favourite guitarists used, and then I was trying to emulate them by getting those effects and putting them into my own chain, and it didn't sound the same because, you know, I pick differently. There's all multitude of different factors that affect the way my guitar sounds, so I'm not going to sound, you know, like somebody else using the same effect. So with this or with any effect, I will always suggest, if you like the basic sound of it based on a review like this, you know, try one for yourself, whether you're in the Stompbox format like this with the Sonic Stomp, or as I say, they do the rack mounted unit called the Sonic Maximizer. Things I don't like about it, this LED, as you can probably saw from the earlier pictures, is blue and it's really, really bright. Now on a dark stage that can be a bit off-putting, because this is a pedal, generally it's on and it's on all the time for me. It's not something like a boost where I'll switch it in, switch it out, and it's more important where I have a visual indication from the pedal board as to what my effects are doing. Generally this will be switched on all the time, so that bright LED can be a bit of a distraction. But that's it, that's a bit of a minor niggle. Where you would place this in the effects chain, you could either place it, as BBE recommend, as the last pedal before you go into the amp, or use it as the last pedal in the effects loop if you've got an effects loop in there. but use it before any reverb. I've tried it both in front of the amp before the preamp, and I've tried it in the effects loop. Personally, I found it works better in front of the amp. When I used it in the effects loop, it gets a little bit noisy. It enhances the sound, but it also seems to bring the noise out a little bit. Granted, I'm not using any sort of noise suppressor or noise gate, so maybe that would change things. But as it stands, running it in front of the amp as the last pedal in the chain before the signal goes into the amp works fine for me, and that's the sound that you've been hearing there. It's a pretty simple effect to use. Generally I just switch it on and let it colour the sound, and it just sits there and does its job. Dialing in my preferred sound, it's a bit of a funny one, because sometimes when you get an effect, you twiddle in the knobs to try and dial in the sound that you want. This one I found I was doing much more switch the effect off and switch the effect on, and doing a before and after comparison to really hear the effect of the effect working, because like I say, it is quite subtle, and you might think that's a bit weird, because why, if you have to really struggle to listen to the effect and hear it if it's being used, why would you use it at all? It's kind of hard to describe. Hopefully those sound clips I played before should show you the value of it, but like I say, it's a subtle beastie, but I like it. It's at the end of my effects chain, and generally switched on all the time nowadays. So probably one of my most used pedals. So it's the BBE Sonic Stomp.